Hey guys, and welcome to another video. So in today's video we're going to be talking about the problem with specs. Straight up, let's go. Specs are actually short for the longer word specification. Now, specification basically refers to the information about the components that a device is made up of. Like I said, for those of us who've seen the earlier video, I've made a video about specs. Where is it? Oh yeah, should be this way, up there. You really want to watch it, seriously. Watch it after this video. All right, so problem with specs, it's actually talking about, specs have their advantages, which I've already listed in the aforementioned video, and specs are very important. I think some of them, like I said, included being able to assess a phone before buying it, and then be able to compare devices, weigh the pros and cons based on the components, the specifications of each device, as well as being able to know what a device is capable of without even handling it. Specs do a lot of this and more, but there is also a dark side to specs. Now, ordinarily by themselves, specs are actually a very good servant, especially when you know how to use them. But specs can also be used to mislead and confuse buyers. Think of it like fire, for example. You use fire to cook your food, to warm your body, to burn your rubbish. But when fire gets out of control, it's going to burn your house down. And that's the same thing with specs. Lots of companies are starting to realize that they can no longer hide specs as well as they used to. So nowadays, they're starting to put out specs that are very, very misleading, that can mislead the average consumer. So I'm going to be looking at several ways these companies actually mislead people through their specs. I'm going to start with the simplest one, and that is battery. Most companies are very quick to advertise their battery size. Now you see batteries these days are getting bigger. Once upon a time, 4000 milliampere per hour was seen as a very big battery, but now 4000 mAh is actually the standard size for most phones. I think we're now starting to see batteries of 6000 milliamperes per hour, and that will tell you how battery size has grown over the years. Now it's very easy to look at battery size and then conclude that this phone is going to last me for a very long time, but that is not always true, because sometimes the battery itself has to power the phone. So if the components of the phone are power hungry, especially when companies tend to use old processors that are built on very huge transistor nodes like 28 nanometers and so on and so forth, like the Samsung A02, such components of the phones are going to draw battery massively. So therefore, the spec that you see concerning battery is going to seem as though it's wrong or it's false, but that's only because they never really tell you or never really explain the full picture. So that's why sometimes you buy certain phones with very big batteries and you start wondering, why is it that my battery doesn't last as long? A 4000 mAh battery is not behaving like a 4000 mAh, or a 5000 mAh battery is not behaving like a 5000 mAh. I don't understand. Well, sometimes these are some of the things that you have to note, especially when the phone has very power hungry components that will drain battery massively. Whatever spec they put there, you cannot really judge it on face value unless you access the other specs. Cameras are the new battleground that everybody is dueling it out, especially when it comes to cameras. Everybody is fighting for, a share. I think DxO Mark has really come to prominence because of how important smartphone cameras have become in this day and age. Now, a very, very easy way that companies tend to deceive people when it comes to camera prowess is by trying to push the narrative that megapixel counts are actually all you need to know about camera performance. In a way, it does have some merit. Yeah, because obviously an 8 megapixel camera is better than a 4 megapixel camera. A 12 megapixel camera is better than an 8 megapixel camera. But above 12, things start to get a little bit mushy. Now, apart from the whole megapixel confusion, apart from the whole megapixel thing, the images have to be processed. Now, most processors actually have what is called a dedicated ISP, a dedicated photo processor that processes images from the camera. Now, most of these processors actually have certain limits they can go in terms of image processing. Now, most budget processors like the Helio P35, for example, it's one of my favorite budget processors, maxes out at 25 megapixels. It would be a game of diminishing returns, or a situation of diminishing returns, if you put anything above 25 megapixels on top of that ISP. It's not going to process it very well. So therefore, if you're buying a 50 megapixel phone, a 48 megapixel phone, a 64 megapixel phone on top of a Helio P35, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. So the megapixel count doesn't matter if there is a very poor ISP under it processing pictures. And also, some people could also talk about, like, they could give you a 50 megapixel camera, 64 megapixel camera, but the software, because obviously you need both hardware and software to process images, the software could be really bad. But most people are going to see the megapixel count and you're going to rush to get it, and disappointment is waiting. It's actually quite sad. I think the last area I want to look at, to keep this video short, it's already quite long now. Another area I want to look at is the processor, the SoC, the part of the phone that controls the whole operation, the whole jig. And many companies are not, in fact, I think most of them are actually quite ashamed to tell you how bad they are shortchanging their customers when it comes to the processor used. Now, if you notice something, you will see that if you want to buy some phones, some people will put it out front and they'll tell you this is the MediaTek Helio G88. This is the Snapdragon 678. Some other companies, you go and check, you will see octa-core 2.0 gigahertz. It's very fast, believe us, because we said so. Another place you go, you'd see octa-core 1.8 gigahertz. It's a very fast, it's a gaming beast. Well, who made it? Octa-core is not the name of any processor that I know. It's simply a metric that tells me that there are octa 8. There are 8 CPUs on that SoC, but it doesn't necessarily say anything else other than that. Quad has 4 CPUs and Octa has 8 CPUs, and that's just it. That's just what it tells you. So most people would then buy and then realize that they are using a low-end processor, because it's happened to me. I bought a phone with a quad-core processor that was 2018, and I was like, yay, gaming champion, only for me to realize it was a MediaTek 6737. Ouch. And that's that. So obviously, like I said, a very good understanding of specs will help you to be able to tell when companies are trying to play hanky-panky with you, the customer. Like I always say, if you follow this channel, whether it's on YouTube or it's on Facebook or it's on Telegram, we're trying to bring out these things, open the conversation so that customers and buyers get value for their money. It's all about smartphones. It's all about like tech in general, but we like smartphones here. So we want to make sure that you know what you're getting value for your money. That's how companies can lie about specs. This has led some people to tell you that specs are fake. No, specs aren't necessarily fake. Specs are not fake. Companies are trying to deceive people. And that's that. My name is Jeffrey, and this has been another episode of Inquisitive Universe. See ya.